And welcome back. You're watching Morning Live. Now, a Western Cape man who murdered his drug addict son will appear in the Mitchells Plain court today. 62-year-old Sedick Abrahams admitted to stabbing his 28-year-old son Clinton in the chest during a heated argument in January over a plate of food. Now, the pensioner says his family had gone through hell with his son's addiction over the past 13 years and that the act was in self-defense. And to discuss this further, we are joined now by Adrie Vermeulen, who's acting coordinator at the National Office of the South African National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, or SANCA. Adrie, thanks so much for coming through.
Thank you, Sakina, and thank you for having us on this morning show.
It's another tragic incident,
Absolutely.
But of course, it's a story that is so familiar to so many South Africans. They may not all end in this type of tragedy where someone dies, but usually there is tragedy all over the show.
Absolutely, and I think this is just showing us how severe the problem is and how it affects families. So when we look at this whole disease that we speak about, we also say it's a family disease, so it affects everybody in the family. And this is just a very tragic story that shows us the desperation that parents go to. They don't know where to turn to, where to seek help, and it just is a sad story.
And speaking of help, and I think that is perhaps, one of the sore points, that some of the consternation around this particular issue, because people don't know where to seek help, firstly. And even if they do know, usually those facilities are either full or, there is just no means to get someone into a rehab facility.
I think so. I think there's a couple of issues. One is the availability of facilities. There is a lot being done by the Department of Social Development, and a lot of new centres have been opened across the country. I think that it's more about getting that person to want help as well. So that for me is the other part of it. Are they in denial about the problem? Are they willing to change their life? So for me, that it's on different levels, So yes, there is help available. Yes, you're right. Sometimes access is difficult to gain, especially if you're unemployed, especially if you don't have any means to pay for treatment. But there are options available, and we also have a wonderful act that helps parents. If the child is not willing to go through the legal system, try and get this person into treatment.
So you can take someone even though they don't want to go.
Yes.
So what would be that process?
That whole process, we call it a committal process. It's under the Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse Act 20 of 2008. And under that act, with the help of a social worker from DSD, you can then get that person to be admitted to a state rehabilitation facility under a court order. So people don't know this. They're not aware of the options that's available. They go to the police station. They go there, they report the case, they try and get help there, and it's very difficult for people then to take it further. They don't really know what else to do. So they are actually trapped in this whole situation. And thinking about this case specifically, one sees that this family has been terrorized for a long time. Their son has been on drugs for many years, and it really started affecting everybody in that family. It changed the communication, the way they deal with problems, the roles they play, because you're sitting with a person that's changed their personality through their addiction. It has affected them on all levels. The brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, so every aspect of this person's life is affected, and you really have this stranger in your house. You have this person that you don't know anymore, that is unpredictable, that you don't know what to expect next from them.
And, this is often what one hears people say. Adrie, there is empirical evidence, though, to prove that when people are committed without their consent, that they do tend to relapse more often.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to when we look at ourselves, for instance, we don't want to be told what to do, So immediately when it's not your decision, and you don't take ownership of that decision. So it makes it very hard for you then to change your life if it wasn't your own doing. But I think giving a person an opportunity to just start thinking clear about their life, just breaking that cycle of addiction by going to a treatment facility, you're giving them the opportunity to start thinking rationally, thinking logically again, and not being so controlled by the substance that they are using.
And then, Adrie, just finally on a cost matter, because usually one of the complaints is that it is very costly to have someone admitted into a rehabilitation setup. What should the cost be, and why is it so exorbitant?
The costs are expensive if you start looking at private sectors versus your NPO sector. So you find that, yes, it is a medical condition, and it needs to be treated on a medical, both as a psychiatric condition as well. You know, so you're looking at, you have professional staff in place. It's a multidisciplinary team that works with the client. It's accommodation. It is actually less costly than going to hospital, but people don't see it in the same way. They say it's a large amount of money that's paid for it, but compare it to other illnesses where people seek help, it's actually a lot less than that.
Well, Adrie, thank you so much for coming through and speaking to us, and quite a bit to bite into there. And thank you so much to Adrie Vermeulen from SANCA. And as she said, you don't have to suffer in silence. You can have someone committed without their consent. We're going to go to a short break.